Even as the sun beat down on SeaWorld San Diego, a subtle chill permeated the air backstage. It wasn't the coastal breeze. It was the kind of dread that settles deep in your bones, a premonition whispering of something about to go terribly wrong. The clock was ticking. 25 minutes until the summer showcase, the highlight of SeaWorld's season, the culmination of months of planning and rehearsals. But for Evelyn Hope, those minutes felt like an eternity, each tick amplifying the growing unease that clawed at her insides. Neros, her partner in this elaborate underwater ballet, was off. He'd been off for weeks, but today, the dissonance was deafening. He wasn't responding to cues, his movements were erratic, and the normally bright intelligence in his eyes had been replaced with a dull, almost vacant stare. It was a look Evelyn knew all too well, the look of a captive spirit slowly suffocating. She glanced at the bustling activity around her, trainers prepping equipment, techs adjusting lighting, the marketing team making last-minute checks on the Jumbotron. Everyone was focused on the spectacle, on the performance, on the illusion of harmony. No one seemed to notice the storm brewing just beneath the surface. The silent scream of an animal pushed to his limits. Evelyn adjusted her wetsuit, the neoprene suddenly feeling constricting, like a second skin trapping her in a nightmare. She walked towards the holding pool where Neros was currently residing, each step heavy with reluctance. She wanted to call it off, to tell them that he wasn't ready, that she wasn't ready. But the words caught in her throat, choked by the weight of expectation, the pressure of her role, the fear of what they would say. SeaWorld had invested heavily in the Evelyn and Nero story. Their bond was a marketing goldmine, a feel-good narrative that resonated with audiences eager to believe in the possibility of interspecies connection. To cancel now would be more than just a disappointment. It would be a financial blow, a public relations disaster. And Evelyn, despite her growing discomfort, was trapped in the role she'd unknowingly helped create. She reached the edge of the pool and knelt down, her gaze meeting Naros's. He was submerged, his massive body a dark silhouette against the turquoise water. He didn't acknowledge her presence, didn't surface to greet her as he usually did. He simply remained there, suspended in the artificial ocean, a prisoner in his own kingdom. "Hey, big guy," Evelyn murmured, her voice barely above a whisper. "How are you feeling?" Silence. She waited, her heart pounding against her ribs. Still. Nothing. Evelyn knew this wasn't just moodiness. This was something deeper, something fundamental. It was the culmination of years of confinement, of forced performances, of the relentless pressure to conform to human expectations. It was the breaking point of a creature whose very essence was defined by freedom and family. A wave of guilt washed over her, sharp and agonizing. She had become complicit in this, blinded by her own desire to connect, to understand, to heal. She had convinced herself that she was helping him, that their bond was somehow mitigating the cruelty of his captivity. But now, staring into his unresponsive eyes, she realized the truth. She had simply become another part of the show. A stage manager approached, clipboard in hand. 5 minutes, Evelyn. Get ready to go. Evelyn nodded, her stomach churning. 5 minutes. 5 minutes until she had to smile and wave, until she had to pretend that everything was fine, until she had to put her life, and possibly Neros's, on the line for the sake of entertainment. She turned back to the pool, desperation creeping into her voice. "Neros, please. Just give me something, a signal, anything." Still, he remained submerged, a silent, brooding presence. Evelyn closed her eyes, trying to block out the noise, the lights, the impending performance. She needed to think, to find a way out of this impossible situation. But her mind was a whirlwind of conflicting emotions: fear, guilt, responsibility, and a stubborn, almost delusional hope that she could somehow reach him, that she could somehow prevent the disaster she felt looming. She remembered the first time she met Nairos, the quiet connection she felt, the sense that she understood his pain. She had believed, with every fiber of her being, that she could make a difference, that she could bridge the gap between their worlds. Now, she wondered if she had simply been projecting her own grief onto him, seeing in his captivity a reflection of her own loss. The weight of that realization was almost unbearable. She had failed him, she had failed herself, and now she was about to walk into a stadium filled with thousands of people, knowing that she was one wrong move away from tragedy. A sharp whistle pierced the air. "Evelyn, let's go. You're on." She took a deep breath, steeling herself for what was to come. She had made her choice years ago when she turned down that scholarship and walked through the gates of SeaWorld. Now she had to face the consequences. As she walked towards the stage, she caught the eye of a fellow trainer, a young woman named Sarah, who had always been skeptical of Evelyn's close relationship with Nairos. Sarah's expression was unreadable, a mixture of pity and apprehension. Evelyn forced a smile, trying to project an air of confidence she didn't feel. "Wish me luck," she said. Sarah hesitated for a moment, then shook her head slightly. "Just be careful, Evelyn." Evelyn nodded, her heart sinking. Even Sarah knew something was wrong. She reached the platform, the roar of the crowd washing over her like a tidal wave. The lights were blinding, the music was deafening, and the pressure was immense. She scanned the audience, searching for a friendly face, a sign of reassurance. But all she saw were expectant eyes, eager to be entertained. She took another deep breath, trying to calm her racing heart. 15 minutes. 15 minutes until the performance began. 15 minutes until she had to face Nairos, knowing that he was a ticking time bomb, a captive animal on the verge of explosion, and SeaWorld, blinded by profit and obsessed with illusion, was about to unleash him on an unsuspecting audience. 10 minutes until everything changed forever. The lights dimmed, a hush fell over the crowd, thick with anticipation. You could practically taste the excitement, a sugary blend of popcorn and naive wonder. What they were about to witness, they believed, was the pinnacle of human-animal connection. A dance of trust, a symphony of understanding, all orchestrated in the shimmering blue of a purpose-built stage. What they didn't see, what they couldn't possibly comprehend, was the precarious tightrope walk on which Evelyn teetered, the storm brewing beneath the deceptively calm surface. The music swelled, a carefully curated blend of orchestral grandeur and tribal beats, designed to evoke both majesty and primal instinct. It was pure Hollywood, a soundtrack to a fantasy carefully constructed over decades. On the platform, Evelyn took her place. A radiant smile stretched across her face, her eyes sparkling with what appeared to be unadulterated joy. She was the picture of confidence, the embodiment of SeaWorld's carefully crafted narrative. In that moment, she wasn't just a trainer, she was a performer, a storyteller, an actress playing the role of a lifetime. She raised her hand, a graceful gesture that mirrored the conductor of an orchestra. Below, in the depths of the tank, a leviathan stirred. Nairos, the star of the show, the apex predator, the reason most of those 3,000 pairs of eyes were glued to the water. He surfaced on cue, a mountain of muscle and blubber emerging from the depths, his black and white markings gleaming under the spotlight. A collective gasp rippled through the audience. He was magnificent, awe-inspiring, a true force of nature. And here's where the deception truly began. Because for those first few minutes, everything looked perfect. Evelyn's commands were crisp and clear, her movements fluid and precise. Nero's responded with seemingly effortless grace, executing breaches, tail slaps, and synchronized swims. With practiced ease, the illusion was flawless. The crowd roared with approval. Children shrieked with delight. Even seasoned trainers watching from the sidelines allowed themselves a moment of cautious optimism. They began their synchronized routine. The ballet, as some lovingly called it. Evelyn would signal and Nairos would spin. She would dive and he would follow. It was all so perfectly timed. It had taken them years to get here, to trust one another, or so everyone thought. Evelyn, with a serene look on her face, effortlessly signaled for Nairos to come to her and gently place her on his nose so he could elevate her out of the water. This was the peak of the performance, the defining moment of trust that would be highlighted in commercials for the coming season. The crowd began recording, each person wanting a copy of this extraordinary moment. He performed with the skill that was expected from him. He gently allowed her to slide back into the water, resurfacing moments later and nudging her affectionately. The routine continued and the showmanship was at its peak. Smiles across faces and gasps of joy filled the stadium. Evelyn was a master at this. She was a natural, but no one could deny the slight and subtle changes in Nero's behavior. He was off, but Evelyn continued. The show had to go on. They circled each other, a mesmerizing dance of predator and, well, not prey, partner. That's what SeaWorld wanted you to believe. The distance between them closed, shrunk down to the point that Evelyn could reach out and brush her fingers across Nairos's smooth, black skin. A moment of intimate connection, a testament to the power of understanding. The audience ate it up. It was exactly what they came to see. But even in that moment of apparent harmony, there were subtle cracks in the facade. A slight hesitation in Nairos's movements, a flicker of something unreadable in his eye. The water felt different to Evelyn. It was heavier and colder than usual. She couldn't quite place what was happening, but something was definitely wrong. The applause was deafening. She started with an elementary maneuver, an aquatic roll. The crowd loved it. She would gracefully move underwater, and Nairos would follow her and perform an elegant barrel roll to come up on the other side of her. This was supposed to be a perfect reflection of trust. But today, Nairos was a tad too slow. Evelyn felt a bump, an unexpected collision that made her stop in her tracks. She looked back at Nairos, and what she saw in his eye made her freeze. He wasn't playing along anymore. The dance was over. The script was being ripped to shreds. And in that moment, the false sense of security that had enveloped the stadium began to dissipate, replaced by a chilling premonition of what was to come. The show was far from over, but the performance had just begun. The real performance, the terrifying, unpredictable, and ultimately tragic performance that would forever change the lives of everyone in attendance. The game had changed. The rules were being rewritten, and Evelyn, along with 3,000 unsuspecting spectators, was about to become a pawn in a drama far beyond their wildest imaginations. The applause slowly died down. The music faded out. All eyes were on Evelyn and Nairos, waiting for what was to come next. Something was about to shift. The attack. It's almost impossible to comprehend the speed and ferocity of it. The way something so meticulously crafted, so deliberately presented as safe, could unravel in a blink. Minute -2 to minute 0. The initial strike Nero's didn't just attack Evelyn, he detonated. He was a 4-ton torpedo of pent-up rage, and Evelyn was directly in his path. The initial strike, the upward lunge, it wasn't a bite at first. It was a blow, a concussive, bone-shattering collision that sent her flying. Witnesses described seeing her lifted almost completely out of the water. A fleeting glimpse of a body suspended against the backdrop of horrified faces before she was dragged back down. The screams started then, a wave of pure, unadulterated terror washing over the stadium. The carefully orchestrated music, the announcer's voice, all instantly irrelevant, drowned out by the primal cries of a crowd witnessing something unspeakable. Down below, in the murky water, the real horror was unfolding. Nero's didn't release her. He held her captive in his jaws, using his immense power to drag her deeper away from the surface, away from any chance of escape. Minute 0 to minute +5, frantic. Attempts and mounting panic, the immediate response was chaotic. Trainers, initially frozen in disbelief, scrambled into action. Throw ropes were deployed, splashing harmlessly around the churning water. Commands were shouted, whistles blown, but Nero's was unresponsive, lost in his own world of primal instinct. He thrashed, he rolled, each movement a violent reminder of Evelyn's impossible situation. Divers, clad in wetsuits, rushed to the pool's edge, but hesitated. Entering the water meant entering the lion's den, risking their own lives in a desperate attempt to save Evelyn. The risk was unimaginable, compounded by the knowledge that even approaching Nero's could prove fatal. Above the surface, the scene was a pandemonium. Parents shielding children's eyes, the elderly clutching at their chests, teenagers filming with morbid fascination, documenting a nightmare they would later struggle to process. SeaWorld staff, their faces etched with a mixture of fear and dawning realization, desperately tried to regain control. Announcements were made, garbled and disjointed, urging calm, promising help was on the way. But the words were meaningless against the backdrop of the unfolding tragedy. Minute +5 to minute +20. The agony of waiting These were the longest minutes imaginable. The water, once a vibrant blue, was now stained crimson, a horrifying testament to Evelyn's struggle. Neros continued to hold her beneath the surface, surfacing only briefly to reposition, to inflict further damage. Each time he emerged, there was a collective gasp from the crowd, a desperate plea for Evelyn's life that went unanswered. The silence between these brief appearances was even more agonizing, a suffocating void filled with the unspoken fear that each dive meant the end. Rescue attempts continued, but they were futile. Nets were deployed, but Neros evaded them with ease. Divers attempted to approach, but were forced back by his aggressive movements. The sheer power and unpredictability of the Orca made any intervention almost impossible. Minute +22, minute +26. The inevitable conclusion, then, finally, the water stilled. Neros released his grip. Evelyn's lifeless body floated to the surface, limp and broken. The horror was complete. The paramedics rushed in, their faces grim, but the reality was undeniable. There was no hope. Evelyn Hope was gone. The atmosphere shifted again. The screams subsided, replaced by a stunned silence, a heavy, suffocating blanket of grief and disbelief. The crowd, once filled with excitement and anticipation, was now a sea of stricken faces, haunted by the images they had just witnessed. The immediate aftermath, the evacuation, was slow, orderly, but filled with a palpable sense of trauma. People moved like zombies, their eyes glazed over, their voices hushed. The park, once a place of joy and wonder, now felt like a crime scene. SeaWorld's response in the immediate aftermath was swift and calculated. The park was closed. Performances were cancelled. A media blackout was imposed. The official narrative was carefully crafted, focusing on the tragic accident and expressing deepest condolences to Evelyn's family. But behind the scenes, a different story was unfolding. Lawyers were consulted, statements were prepared, and damage control was the top priority. The company's reputation, its financial stability, its very existence were all on the line. The reality, however, was impossible to ignore. The carefully constructed illusion of harmony between humans and orcas had been shattered, replaced by a horrifying reminder of the inherent danger of keeping these magnificent creatures in captivity. The cost of that illusion had been Evelyn Hope's life, and the world would never look at SeaWorld the same way again.